All right, this is the opportunity for you guys to ask questions, but I'll start off. Come on, Fraser, get up here. Okay. The first question I had was for you, Fraser. Bob made quite a strong plea for systemisation. In your lucerne grazing system, would you describe that as what you've been doing there as systemisation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big systems there was understanding the plant and the fact it grew this big taproot down. And so we sow about 65 hectares every year, which ensures we can mate all of our sheep on loose and get the same results regardless of the season. And so we've just come through the toughest season we've had moisture-wise in my 20 years at home, and we've still scanned 186% in our ewes. And so that, for us, is an example of our system working really well.
Thanks, Fraser. To the audience. Surely there is a question. Yes, who's running around with the microphone? You put one in front of me. No, it's not. Laura.
My question is around integration. You guys have mentioned a whole lot of incredible tools which we have available on the market. How are we going to integrate them? To Blair's point around reducing multiplication of data entry.
I think the answer from farmers would be, we don't know, we're not IT specialists, but can you get it sorted out? So what I'd like to do is probably ask Andrew, who spent the last 5 years trying to get interoperability in the industry, and if you want to know all the hurdles, Andrew can give us a precise definition of all of those.
I'd actually be interested to hear some feedback on this from particularly consultants in our levy organisations as well. But I guess my experience is we've been trying to work at the level of interoperability. In other words, when systems want to work together, how do they do that at a technical level? And it's easy to solve the technical problem. It takes a bit of time, but it's solvable. But the first one on that list was people, and people are the problem when it comes to interoperability. In this case, it's our organisations who say, I don't particularly want my software to work with that software, or I want it to work with it one day, but it's not a priority for the next 2 years or 3 years. But what we're hearing from farmers is that it is a priority. But I've got a similar question, which is, how easy do things have to be to use? And Blair, you might want to jump in and answer this. How easy do things have to be to use for it to be something that every farmer, or at least that kind of middle 50% would use?
I guess it's back to that opportunity, the opportunity it creates. If it's a big enough opportunity, if it's hard, we'll use it. Like from Farmex, it's very painful for me, but I see a big value in it. Whereas, so the answer is it's a price point effectively. That time is, so we do the analysis. If I don't think there's a value, then I tend to not update my Farmex file for 3 months, and then I'll get around to doing it because the value proposition is there. So the answer is, for most of us, we're like everybody else, we're very time poor. So the answer is, it's got to be really simple. It's got to be so that you don't have to sit down with your staff and explain it to them 3 times. They just get it and they can fill it in, and there's no chance of them making an error. It's not like you've got to go back and say, did you fill the form in correctly, or did you follow what the app said, or did you follow the instructions? It's a bit like, pull it out. Blokes don't like reading the instruction books, so I don't see why an app's any different.
Yeah.
I can give a science perspective on this data and interoperability. So when we have new people come into Dairy NZ, often people come to me and say, oh, what's the data landscape look like? And I'll give them this Word document that I typed up that outlines a little bit about 30 different databases or data sources, and none of them are interoperable. Okay, so that's super painful. In the science space now, so we're getting, you want to do some science, you're pulling data from potentially half a dozen different places, right? And we're doing more work with sensors that generate, heaps of data. On our criteria list, when we go to talk to people about, okay, you've got a cool device that measures this, can you give us that data, machine to machine, as we need it, basically in real time, and that's the, an API, basically. Can we access the data we need when we want it, and have you got that set up? And basically people will cross themselves off our purchasing list if they don't tick that box.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce probably Andrew's view. He can sort out the techie bit of it, but to me the challenge here is getting the various companies aligned so they are really sharing the data. And that challenge has been around for quite some time, to be fair, and I'm not sure we're that much closer a few years down the track. So, yeah, to me that's the big barrier there. In terms of Blair's comment about simplicity, it's just got to be on the phone, it's got to be easy, really easy. And I often think about, on a dairy farm, measuring pasture on a sheep and beef farm is hard, and I get it if there's excuses. On a dairy farm, by and large, they're flat, similar paddock sizes. It should be happening on every single dairy farm. It doesn't. What are we at, Mark? 50% at best?
It would be that.
Yeah.
In the smaller survey we did this,
something like 42,
Yeah.
In various ways of doing it, a lot of it by eye.
Yeah, I was being hopeful. I was hoping it had got up to 50%. But, that's the point. There's a plate meter. It's easy to use. It's old technology. Why is it not being used? So, don't underestimate that challenge.
I'd just like to make the point that Farmex, from a sheep and beef perspective, is probably the coolest tool you can have in your toolbox. And I could spend half an hour talking about that. But the thing is, what it enables you to do is monitor and report what's going on the farm, right? But it also enables you to farmletise your farm, so you can look at how's this area compared to that area, and you get all the cool information coming out. So why don't more farmers use it, and why do I get so frustrated? Because I have a farmer go on to Farmex and then go off it. And the reasons are quite simple. And Blair summarised it really in a nutshell. It's just getting pasture covers done. Every month. For it to be any use to you, you need to do that, yes? And you need to get animal live weights, So it's the old story, if you put crap into a system, you get crap out. And so you need good data. And so if you could wave a wand, it would be that you could just have pasture cover, just drop into Farmex somehow or other, out of the sky. And same with your live weights. They just populate your Farmex files as you go along. It would be just wondrous, wouldn't it? And then of course with pasture quality and stuff like that as well. So another frustrating thing for the system programmers is, so you kill some livestock and you want to get that reported. Where does that come from? And at the moment, all of that stuff, Blair, you've got to put it in manually, and manually, and it just drives you crazy. So there you go. There's the plea, Andrew. And I don't know, knock all the heads together, do whatever the heck you have to. But that would make a huge difference, wouldn't it?
Well, I think we're getting a really clear message there.
I was just going to add, I wonder, we in this room are all sort of data-driven, farm systems-driven, like doing analysis, but we've heard that there are a lot of farmers that don't. And I'm wondering if we've been a little bit generic here in thinking that we can get 100% of farmers to use some of these tools and really concentrate on profit and grow more pasture and stuff. And I think the population that perhaps want to do that or could do that is much smaller than 100%.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. As a young consultant starting up in a practice, I would drive around the country and I'd look at a farm and it'd look terrible. I think, wow, they really need me there. So I'd drive up the drive, and within 5 minutes I'd realise they don't need me at all. They're not actually going to be engaged in anything. And my rough calculation is that half of farmers are not engaged. And they're not engaged for very good reasons. They're going through farm succession, they've got some disagreements, that something's wrong with the marriage, they've got depression, and these are really important things for them to sort out. The farm's the next important thing once they've got that sorted out. So half of farmers are dealing with issues that stop them from being engaged. But that does leave half of farmers that are engaged. And of those farmers, these are all very reasonable questions. Was there any other questions? So I've got 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Chris.
Daniel mentioned that he's using AgriNet. So just to complicate this integration thing, we've got an Englishman using an Irish program at Te Awamutu for pasture management. So just making that point, and perhaps you might like to comment of why you've chosen that, Daniel.
It's a program that we were using in the UK as well. It just does everything we need, and I've not seen an alternative that matched it. And I know I'm not the only one over here that's using it as well. And we're sharing with discussion groups. You can allow others access to your AgriNet. But yeah, it definitely does complicate the data sharing space.
Well, there's an opportunity for a New Zealand producer of that product.
Maybe it's been missed, and the Irish have stolen from it.
I think that's very likely. Warren.
This is I'm Warren King from AgResearch. I just want to shift the focus a little bit. Maybe this is a question for everyone on the panel, but I specifically want to single out John from Mount Summers to direct this question to. It's about the environmental footprint of farming, because this is what all the voters in West Auckland and Lower Hutt and Wainuiomata want to know, of course. I really like the story of of your property and the development and the thinking that you went through, and the fact that your farm is now transformed from your perspective. Maybe not from a voter's perspective. So can you tell them that the greenhouse gas footprint of your farming operation is actually heading in the right direction? And can you tell them, with all the increase in legumes you've got in your landscapes, that the quality of the water coming off your property is heading in the right direction as well?
How long have we got? No, we're acutely aware of that, and part of what we're doing is being driven by the fact that our farm manager we're taking into an equity partnership. And to make that pay, certainly in the landscape of 3 or 4 years ago, we had to be increasing stock numbers. So that landscape's changed, and taking environmental considerations, now we have to look at it quite differently. But part of what we're doing is increasing our production per head, as opposed to just increasing our total numbers, and that has quite an impact on that. We're also aware that we're not going to do that entirely, and we're currently assessing a forestry option. So one of the things that we will do is to take some of our land out of pastoral production, and it's not going to be a big cost to the operation, and put it into trees and account for some of our responsibilities there. We're testing water. We're one of these unusual properties where we control our own quality from spring to exit. So we have like the branches of a tree, and we start at I'm sure some of you are aware of this, we start at the boundary, taking one test, and we work our way up the river, and wherever the river divides, we take another test so we can isolate where there are any problems. And at the moment, the water's pristine, as you would expect from that sort of vast area. We form probably 60 to 70% of the upper catchment area of the Hinds, which is the most contentious, probably the most contentious catchment in Canterbury. So we're looking at it for a number of ways. We're also under pressure from a biodiversity point of view. I really struggle with the biodiversity one because there are no rewards for doing anything extra, just penalties for doing something that they consider unattractive. And one of the issues is that we've had parts of our places described as SNA, significant natural areas, and we don't have any problem with that. It's great. We like to have those there. But it's quite interesting that the biggest one is an altitudinal sequence of snow tussocks that goes through several species and subspecies from bottom to top, and it occupies probably 500 hectares. I have never in 70 years of being on my property had anyone that's come to look at that biodiversity or even got excited about it walking past it. On the other hand, back at the homestead, we have the greatest example of biodiversity, and thousands of people have viewed that, and that's my wife's garden.
Can I just say one thing? Because I've said nothing yet. To Warren's point, I think we're going to need some tools in the future, Warren, that are going to measure our kilograms of product produced per kg of methane. So they're doing that in Taupo already, obviously, with the Taupo catchment. Kilograms of product produced per nitrogen kilo leached. And I think we're going to need to do the same with methane, because we're going to have to get a lot more efficient with that. Otherwise, it's going to cost us.
Okay. Now, we're going to have to leave it there, but we do have a good length of time for lunch, in which case you can ask them other questions. So I'd like to give everyone a huge round of applause.